Hey there, and welcome back to Local Marketing Secrets, where we learn the secrets of the top experts in local marketing. I'm your host, Danny Leibrandt, and today I'm with Brigham Dickinson. If you don't already know Brigham, he is the founder of Powerselling Pros, the nation's top coaching organization for customer service representatives in the trades, having trained over 1,000 CSRs across the US, Canada, and Australia. He's the visionary behind the renowned Pattern for Excellence customer service framework and the co-founder of the successful after-hours answering service Booked by PSP, known industry-wide for converting nearly every incoming call into revenue. As a best-selling author, Brigham's insights have transformed thousands of local service businesses through his acclaimed books, including Pattern for Excellence and his newest release, Something to Give. He's also a celebrated keynote speaker at major industry events like Lennox Live, ACCA, PHCC, and EGIA, and regularly shares his knowledge on top podcasts such as Toolbox for the Trades and Blue Collar CEO. So if you want to learn how to master customer service to drive more customers for your business, this episode is for you. Now, without further ado, thanks for coming on the show, Brigham.
My pleasure, Danny. Thanks for the opportunity.
For sure, man. So I want to get at the root and the foundation of customer service. Maybe someone that isn't too familiar, just like kind of step into those shoes for a second. How do you think about customer service? How would you explain it to someone that doesn't really know about it?
Well, it's funny that you should ask that question. I just got back from a training at Woodfin. Woodfin is a heating and cooling company, residential heating and cooling company in Richmond, Virginia. I was there for 2 days. On day one, I worked with the CSRs, and on day two, I worked with the sales coordinators. And it was an incredible experience. This is one of those companies that is cause-driven. There's a lot of money-driven companies out there, especially with all the PE groups that have gotten involved. It's changed the way we look at the industry, and you kind of get what you focus in on. And when you see all your friends making a ton of money by being acquired, it's kind of hard not to get sucked up in that and for that to take your focus in that direction. Woodfin's different. When you go to Woodfin, they all want to be there. They all want the company to win. And I'm talking from top to bottom, everybody that I met. And this is not a small organization. They've got 100 technicians. They got 7 sales coordinators. Most companies only have 2 or 3. And they've got like over 20 people answering the phones. This is a solid organization. The owner is second generation, Jack Woodfin. It was crazy when I met him. I don't know how to explain it, Danny. I shook his hand. He happened to be in an office there, I think with Jen, and I came in, shook his hand, and he's like, "Hi, I'm Jack Woodfin." I was like, "Whoa, that's awesome! You're the guy!"
Yeah.
It was so cool. I don't know how to explain it. His team is so motivated, so emotionally engaged in their work. It was awesome. But your question is what does customer service look like in general? And let me give you an example of that. While I was there, there was a hiccup, I guess you could call it, on day one in the morning. So I was training half the CSRs in the morning and then taking the second half of CSRs, the second group, in the afternoon. That way we could still cover the phones and get everybody trained. And this is the initial training before we start coaching one-on-one twice a month over the phone, which is what we do. And we've got over 1,250 trainees in our program now. I appreciate that you said 1,000. That was true about 6 months ago. So,
Okay.
So today we've got, and that's my fault. I should have told you, but we're growing pretty significantly. But in this morning, on this day one in the morning, working with this group of CSRs, there's about 12 people in the room, including the general manager. And the hiccup came when I was talking about the initial part of the phone call. You see, in the beginning of the phone call, the customer has some emotional needs. They want to feel understood. They want to feel cared about. And they want to feel reassured that they've called the right place. This is why a CSR should never say at the beginning of a call, "Where are you located?" Or "What's your address?" Or words like "unfortunately," or "we can't," and "we shouldn't," or "we don't," or what have you. Those are all, it's just the wrong direction. Right? Now, I realize that those things are important at some point in the call. For example, we want to make sure that they're in our service area. Totally agree with that. We certainly want to determine whether or not they've worked this before, because we don't want to duplicate the customer record in our software. I get all those things, but those things aren't as important as giving the customer your attention. Okay, that customer, when they get on the phone, what are they feeling? They're feeling frustrated. They're not sure how much this is going to cost. They're planning to go to Disney, and then this happened, so they're not even sure that they're still going to be able to go to Disney. Stuff like that, right? And I realize I'm being, extreme example, but stuff like that happens. They're not feeling positive emotions at the beginning of that phone call. And so you want to meet them where they are emotionally. You got to show them that you're listening. Tell me more about that. What's going on? So you've been doing this for the last couple of days. Oh my gosh, that's trouble. That's me caring, right? Well, look, you've called the right place. We can definitely help you with that. That's me reassuring. You see, they're not sure that they've called the right place. That's why they're explaining their situation. So you let them explain that situation. You simply say, look, you've called the right place. We can totally help you with that. You do those three things being in the phone call. It's going to make all the difference in the world, because they're going to like you. And if they like you, you not being able to come out today as opposed to tomorrow doesn't matter as much. Why? Because they like you. The dispatch fee, it doesn't matter as much if they like you. It could be $500 for us to come out. They won't care if they like you. Now, I know this is true, and you know it's true, because every time you drive up to a Chick-fil-A and you've got to wait, you don't care. And you don't care that Chick-fil-A is twice as much as McDonald's because of the experience that they created Chick-fil-A. So I guess it just depends on the model that you want to create. But if you want to follow the Chick-fil-A model, this is where it's at. You got to show them first that you're listening, that you care, and reassure them that you're called the right place. Well, the interesting thing is that Woodfin had been taught to not say negative words before I came into the mix. Period. So what that means is even when we get to the point where the customer is explaining their negative situation, that they were taught not to participate in that negative talk and essentially to avoid it, to be above it. Now, the downside to that, the problem with that, for the sake of professionalism, is that you come across as apathetic towards the customer. For the sake of professionalism, you're not meeting them where they are from an emotional standpoint. So let me give you an example. Let's say that a customer is explaining their situation and they use the word sucks. Okay. So right over the phone, the customer says, this sucks. This is what I'm trying to advocate here. It would absolutely be appropriate to say the same thing and say, you know what? You're right. That does suck. What did you just do? You met them where they are emotionally. You meet them where they are emotionally. They feel cared about, and you can lift them up. Okay. How do you lift them up? Well, look, you've called the right place. We can do this. We can help you with this. That's how you lift them up. Okay. So you got to meet them where they are emotionally and lift them up. Now, if you strive to be professional instead of meeting them where they are emotionally, you come across as, like I said before, indifferent, apathetic. You have the opposite effect that you want to create in the beginning of that phone call. You haven't taken care of their emotional need, which is for them to feel that you care about them. Now, let me give you an example outside of this. And this is exactly what I did at Woodfin. I said, you guys, let's pause for a moment. Because I had a choice there in that training. I could either let the coach handle it one-on-one with each of them later on, or I could address it right then and there. Right? So pivot from my training program to resolve this concern, no matter how long it took. So essentially I said, guys, I'm going to tell you a story. And I want you to tell me how you feel emotionally when I tell you the story. And the story is a real story. My son, Isaac, was dating a girl, and they stopped dating. And that girl said to him after they were done dating that she was okay with him kissing whoever he wanted to kiss except this girl or that girl. Well, you know what my son did with that? He made a little video. Yeah. He made a little video showing his old girlfriend, one of the girls that she said not to kiss. He showed a video to her of him kissing her, right? Kissing one of those girls on the list. And of course, she met him at an event and smacked him right across the face for that. Right? It was bad. Okay. There's a red mark on his cheek. Right? So essentially she assaulted him. Right?
Yeah.
She assaulted him. And funny thing, as soon as I shared that story, everyone in the room was like, where's she live? Where does she live? That was so wrong. Okay. That was a negative response. And it was also the right response. Okay. Your goal is to be their friend. Not necessarily professional. Their friend. And that's what friends do. Friends meet people where they are emotionally. They meet their friends where they are emotionally. And that may include saying negative words to show them that you know where they're coming from. So saying things like, wow, that's not good. Negative? Perhaps. Perhaps. And it's accurate, it's appropriate, and it's right. And that's what customer service is all about. It's about showing the customer that you're listening, showing them that you care, even to the point where you might say something negative, to meet them where they are emotionally, and then reassure them that you can help, and you lift them back up. You raise the boats, right? You bring them up with you. And that's what you do in the first 30 seconds to 50 seconds of the call. And that's what customer service should look like.
I love that. So you have to be a friend to them instead. That really makes sense. Like I told you, some of my friends are in HVAC. One of my friends is looking to start his own HVAC company. And when he comes to me for marketing advice, I'm coming at it as a friend because I actually am his friend, like, oh, well, here's what you should do for branding. You should listen to Dan Antonelli, or maybe if it's customer service, he should listen to you, all these different points. But he completely trusts me, and I come at it as a friend because I am his friend. But instead, if you are a customer service representative, maybe you're not obviously friends with everyone that's calling in, but you have to step into that frame of what would it be like if one of your best friends is in dire need, looking for help with this situation. They need help with their HVAC or their pest control, whatever it is. You need to step into that frame. That's really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned before we started, I don't even know if you want to mention this, but I'm just going to go for it. You tell me if it's red flag, but you said your mother's a counselor, right?
Yeah.
Trust me. She is meeting people where they are emotionally.
Oh yeah.
On every visit. This is counseling 101. Right? It is every time you get on the phone with a customer, guess what? It's cheap therapy. At least it should be. They need to feel that you care. They need to feel that connection. So giving them the opportunity, the space to feel understood, to feel cared about, to feel reassured that they've called the right place is pivotal in your customer experience.
Interesting. Okay, so you also have to come at it as kind of a therapist. That's really interesting. I've never heard it put that way. So something I want to make sure to note, or not make sure to note, but I found this really interesting, is that when I asked my question, the first thing that you started out with right away is a story. And I've seen that you're kind of known for this, and I've watched several podcasts of you, and you always dive into a story, and it's always super powerful. You're really good at it. You start with this like low kind of volume and tone. You get really deep into it, and I feel like I'm there with you. Can you explain the power of storytelling and maybe how someone else can get better at storytelling themselves?
I don't know how I got good at this. Certainly wasn't intentional. Okay, I'm going to tell a story to bring you in. I don't know. That's how I like to drive home a point. Look, we are, how do you put it? We are each other's learning material. We are each other's, the real phrase that I'm trying to think of will come to me, and it'll come at the most random moment. But critical learning material. We learn from our experiences. Mm-hmm. And that's the best way that I learn. And so I like to share the experience, right? This is the experience. Here's what happened. Here's what I learned. I feel like I'm learning every day. And I need to do a better job of keeping a journal. This is essentially why I write books. I write books for two reasons. Number one, I want to get clear on what I'm learning day in and day out. And number two, I want to be very good at articulating those things that I've learned. So that's why I write books. That's why I tell stories, because that's how I learn. That's how I am able to retain the information. So I don't have to relearn nobody wants to have to relearn things.
Yeah.
And so sharing experience is a great way for me to learn. And so in answer to your question, because I know I'm not very good at journal writing, I write books, and that's kind of the way I write journals. Oh, and the other reason why I write books is sometimes, okay, I'm just going to tell you another story. When I was younger, I had a mentor. His name is Paul Rogers, and he died when he was 56, very young. Incredible guy, national internet sales trainer for Toyota. So he was in the car industry and well known at the time in the industry. And so when he passed away, I started reaching out to his employer as well as his clients and just asking, hey, do you have any recordings of him, his training and so on and so forth? Because I've been in his training before several times, and it was incredible. He was extremely good. And I couldn't find anything. I mean, I searched high and low and I could find nothing. And it was such a travesty. And so I promised myself after that experience that I would make sure that my kids and my friends knew where I stood, knew where I was coming from. Not just by memory, but anytime they wanted to, they could go onto YouTube and type in Brigham Dickinson and they could hear where I'm coming from. Anytime they wanted to, they could grab one of my books, open it up to any page and see who I am as a person. And so, so that's the reason why, those are the two reasons why I write books. I like remembering the things that I've learned, so I have to relearn them. And I want to make sure that after I'm gone, my loved ones know where I stood in life.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. It's actually really timely for me because I guess I'll tell a story here. I gave a speech or whatever. I was publicly speaking at this event about a week ago. It was a small kind of pest control conference, and I had a great speech and there's a ton of information. I covered like the five biggest things that are changing in SEO and everything you need to know and all these action items. But I feel like, and I was reflecting with my mentor. I was actually just on a trip with my mentor after that, and I was reflecting with him and talking to him about public speaking. And he's a big public speaker. He's done like over 800 events, and I was talking to him about it, and he was like, "Well, probably the most important thing is that you have to start the presentation with a story and you have to end the presentation with a story, because that's how you bring the audience in. That's how you keep them engaged. That's how you, like, to put it in your words, meet them at their level of like, hey, here's how, my dad was really struggling growing his company, or here's how whatever, so that you can meet them at that level and that you can connect with them emotionally instead of just hit them with fact after fact after fact. Like, that doesn't work. People, in order for something to really be internalized, they need that story that they will actually remember, because the facts don't really hit home. But when you have a story that kind of wraps it up nicely, then they remember it a lot better.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad that you brought that up. I was at an event in San Diego. Crazy story how I got there too. I was supposed to be there at 10 o'clock in the morning in San Diego. I drove to Vegas the night before, and I was going to jump on a plane that morning to get to San Diego. And crazy thing, we were stuck on the tarmac for like 2 hours. And so I'm calling the people who are putting on the event and just letting them know, hey, I'm stuck on the tarmac. I don't know if I'm going to get there. Mm-hmm. Crazy thing. Flight finally takes off, lands in San Diego. I jump right into an Uber, drive up to the event. My counterpart, co-owner Barry Gates, was there right outside the hotel, grabs my luggage as soon as I come out of the Uber, points me in the right direction. I run into where they're going to have the event. And as soon as I run into where the event is, I see somebody on stage beginning to introduce me. They mic me up. As soon as I'm mic'd up, he walks off the stage. Here's Brigham Dickinson. And I walk on the stage and I am rolling.
Wow.
Insane. So, and that was the beginning of this. And so as I'm going through the PowerPoint, right, and teaching and so on and so forth, I pause in a moment because something came to me and said, hey, you need to share this specific story. And the story was about my son Isaac. His sophomore year, he struggled with how he handled a loss. So he goes onto the mat, wrestles, and this one wrestling match, and he had beaten this kid before. It was a very close match the first time they wrestled, and he knew it was going to be a close match this other time, and he really wanted to beat this kid again. He was a Delgado, and the Delgados in Las Vegas, they're well known for how well they wrestle. And Isaac already beat him once. And so he's like, I got to beat this guy again. And so it's Isaac's losing 4-5. There's 30 seconds to go. And the last second, Isaac takes his shot. He's got a very deep double leg takedown. and he took this young Delgado down, but time had run out, so he didn't win in time. He didn't take the shot in time, even though it was a perfect shot. And he did not take that loss very well. He came off the mat. He took off his shoes, threw them in the trash, took off his singlet, threw that in the trash, and walked out of the tournament. But I was so embarrassed. I knew all the other kids' parents were like, man, there must be a terrible parent there that doesn't know how to handle, his kid or whatever. Luckily, Isaac came back in and finished the tournament, right? Put his shoes back on. It was after a very stern conversation with the coach, thank goodness, who intervened. But I shared that story with them. And then I shared how Isaac decided to stay with it. Instead of quitting wrestling, he stuck with it. And later on, went to state twice and took second at state and was able to compete and perform at a high level, having overcome that negative experience. Sometimes we are motivated in a bad experience to just quit and give it up, hang it up, right? And luckily he didn't. So I shared that experience, and obviously it was relevant to what I was teaching there on stage. And funny thing, the one thing that they remembered, the audience remembered, was that story. They said, as soon as you started talking about your son, I was completely 100% engaged. I was in it. I was there with you. And so, yeah, you're totally right. There is a power in storytelling for sure.
Yeah, no, it's crazy how that works. I mean, even, Alex Hormozi's book, $100 Million Offers, at least that's the one that I'm thinking of. I'm not sure if you read it, but it's an amazing book in marketing for, creating offers. And the first time that I read through it, I was like, why does every chapter begin with a story? And why does he keep bringing up like these random, but it dawned upon me, it's like, dang, I remembered the story that he told. Like, I don't know what it is, but something about the human mind, like, as soon as there's a story being told and we can relate with them, of Alex Hormozi saying that he was like on his last dollar and that, I had one more day to launch, or, I had 30 days to make this amount of money to pay my team. For some reason, we internalize that and we remember that. So yeah, it's really powerful. And I wanted to touch on that. So we'll move on. Something else I want to cover is your pattern for excellence. So I hear you talking about this all the time. I see you mention it on every single podcast. Can you explain what the pattern for excellence is and how people can use it?
Okay. So applications, sales systems in general, they're taught over and over and over again. Say this, then say this, then say this, then say this, right? And that's great. That's fine. I mean, whatever. The problem with sales systems or steps, right? Take this step, this step, this step. It can get convoluted. It can get confusing. You can forget where you're at in the process. You could follow the process to the T and the customer still doesn't move forward. There's so many things that could keep you from following the process, or from you applying it in a way that's not effective. And then you throw out the process and go back to what you were doing before, which could be even worse than the process itself. And so instead of teaching process and application, I mean, we do have applications, we have scripts, but that's the launching pad. We want them to move on from that. At the end of the day, we want the pattern to be the script. Okay, so what's the pattern? Well, the pattern is a set of principles, okay, a set of truths. When you apply these truths inside the work environment, whether it's with a homeowner, whether it's with your peers, whether it's with your boss, when you apply those principles, you get a correct outcome. You get a good outcome. You have a good consequence. I've been taught that when you teach correct principles, people tend to govern themselves really well. We could study and read every self-help book on the planet. Funny thing about reading self-help books is that even though we may agree with what the self-help books are teaching, we don't necessarily apply what's in the self-help books. Now, we know that because we all have a bunch of self-help books on the shelf, and we don't follow half of it, right?
Yeah.
So a study of behavior is not very good at changing behavior. However, a study of truth is incredibly effective at changing behavior. Why? Because it also teaches the correct consequence that occurs when you apply the truth. Okay, so when you study truths in general, for example, positivity attracts people. Okay, that's a truth. That's a principle. Everybody knows it. It's common knowledge. It's just not common practice. Why? Because life happens. And when life happens, adversity happens, circumstances occur, and we do what's easy in that moment as opposed to what's right. And as a result, we get the negative consequence, right? But if we choose to do what's right in that moment, recognizing that it's a moment that we can personally affect in a positive way, it's funny how we can change the outcome just by following that truth. So positivity attracts people. Well, so does negativity. Negativity attracts negativity.
Yeah.
And so you want to constantly work on being positive. Whenever I come across somebody who is super positive, those are the people that I want to hire. I want to hire those with great attitudes because they're willing to be taught. They're willing to be taught. Preparation inspires confidence. Yep. If you are well prepared, you're going to be super confident when you interact with the customer. We are to the point where we use AI to pile up practice sessions, right? So you get live coaching, but you also have access to an AI coach that works you through the process so you can practice over and over and over again. Make your mistakes in practice, in your preparation, and that will inspire a lot of confidence when you talk to the customer over the phone, when you're doing the real thing. Understanding invites connection. Once again, our goal is to meet the customer where they are emotionally by showing them that we understand, that we care, and reassuring them we call the right place. That's where these principles below come in, right here. Okay, so understanding invites connection. Empathy validates worth. Okay, you're basically saying you are right to feel that way. Even if it's negative, you're right to feel that way. You're worthy, essentially, right? People want to feel worthy. They want to feel accepted. It's an emotional need they're driven towards. So it's important for us to tap into those. Assurance builds trust. Again, our goal here is to reassure them they've called the right place. They don't know that they've called the right place. So by assuring them, it builds the trust between the two, right? Asking encourages action. See, when we ask, when would you like to come out? It's a very powerful question. The intent there is to get them thinking about us coming out, as opposed to, I just want a ballpark price over the phone, or I just want to know what you charge to come out, or I just want to talk to a technician over the phone. See, those don't necessarily help us achieve our end goal. Our end goal is to book that call while that customer, have one of our team members come out. And the way that we do that is we ask the right question. When would you like us to come out? Get them thinking about us coming out. So asking encourages action in general. So we want to ask the right questions. This is also true with fear in general. Okay, I had a conversation with my daughter, Faye. She and I have been doing Spartan races on weekends. We've done 4 of them this year. And every time she approaches the race, she has to deal with fear. She has to face her fears. This is the first time she was running without me. You see, in her 3rd race, she raced in an open heat, and she took first in that open heat. And I said, so sweetheart, if you go in your age group, it's more competitive, but chances are with this time that you did in the open heat, you could win the age group heat as well. So next time you're going to race in the age group heat. And she said, but Dad, you won't be able to run with me if I go in age group. I said, but you're ready. We've done this 3 times now. You're ready. And she said, well, there's some obstacles I can't overcome. Well, then just do the penalty loop. Who cares? Don't even touch the obstacle if you don't feel like you can handle it. Just run right through, do the penalty loop, and keep going. Right? So we built up the strategy, and she did her first race on her own. She had some trolley horses at the end that made it very difficult, but she had a really good race, right? She had a really good race by and large. And all of her fears, all the things she was afraid of beforehand, not even half of those came to fruition. So 80% of what we fear doesn't come to fruition. So when you consider that, take a look at the principle. Asking encourages action. So in other words, our goal here is when we have a fear, we have some sort of anxiety, we need to ask questions. Okay, wait a minute. What are the chances of this happening? Okay, is this even real? See, I'm asking questions so that I can encourage. Fear keeps me from acting, right? Our goal is to act. Our goal is to do something. Our goal is to get something done. And so in general, the principle, the truth of asking encourages action is a truth. Okay. Value creates commitment. So our goal here is to be valuable. right? The way that we are valuable is working with the customer and creating value. It's funny because some people go, wait, I have to have all these tangible items that I need to give the customer for free in order to create value inside the sale, right? Or inside the service so that they move forward with it. That's not necessarily true. You're the value. The energy you bring to the conversation, the energy you bring to that environment, similar to the way they do it at Chick-fil-A. Let me give you an example. So I drove up to a Chick-fil-A once and I always thought, you know what, their lemonade's really good. Do they really freshly squeeze all that lemonade? I just had a hard time believing that with all this line of cars and they're freshly squeezing all that lemonade. There's no friggin' way. Well, I drive up to the window and I say, hey, do you really freshly squeeze all that lemonade? And the gal, she was great. She was quick. She said, we absolutely do. Would you like to try some? You know, as if I have never tried it. And I felt really silly, but I was like, oh, I wonder how it tastes, right? And
Yeah.
I've been there 1,000 times. I know how it tastes. But she offered it to me, and I like free. Everything free I'll take. And so she let me try it. And I was like, wow, that tastes really good. I'll take an extra large, right? So that experience right there, she created value. She created it, right? She gave me a little taste of lemonade. But it wasn't just the lemonade that she let me try for free. It was the experience she created. She said, we absolutely do. Would you like to try some? So powerful, so amazing. And that's value, right? Lastly, gratitude reinforces unity. Amazing thing about gratitude is when you say thank you, what you're saying is you're saying that you made a difference. Right? When you say thank you to someone, you're saying you right there, that thing that you did, you letting me serve you, you moving forward with this offer, all right? Or this service that we're going to do. You giving me the opportunity to provide service to you. Thank you for that. You're saying you made a difference. And when people feel like they've made a difference, they feel important. And when they feel important, they become loyal to you, loyal to your company. And the price doesn't matter that much. And you not being able to get it out today as opposed to tomorrow doesn't matter that much. Why? Because of that unity and that loyalty that you've created, because of gratitude, because of the way you make them feel. That's the pattern for excellence. That's how you create wow experience after wow experience after wow experience.
Love that. As I was listening to you there with the 8 patterns, or the 8 elements within the pattern.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm noticing a discrepancy between logic and emotion. Can you touch on that of like, do you need both? I've heard most people say in sales that, people buy with emotion and then they justify with logic. Is that true? Or like, where do logic and emotion play into this?
I'm glad you asked. From a marketing standpoint, is it mostly science or is it mostly art?
Art, I'd say.
Interesting. What if you needed both? What if some science?
Well, yeah,
is important?
it's hard to pick one. So I think it's both for both scenarios.
And my answer is the same. You need both. You need both. You need common sense, but it's also an art because you're working with people, and your ability, let's call it EQ, right? Your emotional intelligence. There's a ton of science there for sure. But there's also a ton of art. There's a lot of just a natural ability to be able to connect with people. And it doesn't necessarily have to be natural. It can be taught. That's why we use the pattern for excellence to teach that emotional intelligence. So I would say it requires both logic as well as emotion. Okay,
sweet. Let's see. Okay, so something else I wanted to get into. I want to make this more practical. So we've gone into this a little bit. You touched on the first 30 seconds of the call earlier in this podcast, but let's dive into it. Like, what does a successful call answer look like? Let's say someone's calling for HVAC or pest control or garage door, whatever. They're all basically the same. Let's say someone calls in. How should you pick up the phone? What does that call look like? How can you make sure that they become a customer?
I'm glad you asked that question. So in the beginning, we want to make sure that we're listening, show them that we're listening, show them that we care, reassure them they've called the right place. If we do that in the beginning, everything else is going to be easier. The relationship's going to be there. Now, let's say that for whatever reason, customer gets on the phone, they say, hey, I want a ballpark price. So how do we handle that? Well, the same way we handle every call. I'm looking for a ballpark price. Great. Tell me more about your situation. What's going on? That's me listening, right? Well, I've got this air conditioner and it's blowing hot air. My gosh, that's terrible. How long has it been doing that? Oh, last couple of days. Wow. So you've been doing this for two days now? Yeah, I really need to get it fixed. My wife is really getting frustrated. I've got a son. He's 4 months old. He cannot go without AC. Totally understand. And look, we want to make sure things go really well at home. So you've called the right place. We can help you. When would you like us out?
Right
now,
there.
they're going to say one of two things. They're going to say this afternoon. Why? Because they like me. It's emotional. It's not logical, right? Even though there's a methodical way that I go about taking care of those emotions, right? Logic and emotion, both there. Yeah. Let's say they push back. Let's say, really, I just want a ballpark price, right? At that point, we want to create some value. We've been talking about value. How do we do that? Well, it's a great question. Here's what we do. What we do is we send out a comfort advisor. He comes out, he takes a look at the situation. He determines exactly what you need. He'll do a heat load calculation, make sure the system size is right, and he'll give you a price while he's there. When would you like us out?
That does it.
Yeah. So let's say he pushes back again. Really, I just want to get an idea. Just give me a ballpark price on what it would charge, right? On what it would be. Now, if he wants to know what we charge to come out, I'll take it one direction. If he just wants a ballpark price on a new system, I'll take him another direction. So let's say first that he wants a ballpark price on a new system. So what I do there is I'd say, hey, Mr. Jones, if I were to give you a price over the phone right now, and I understand that you're looking for a price, but if I gave you a price over the phone right now and we come out and give you a different price, are you going to be happy with that? And of course, he's going to say, no, I'm not going to be happy with that. Well, see, that's just it. It would be absolutely irresponsible for me to give you a price over the phone. We're not going to do that. What we want to do is give you an accurate price. And in order to give you an accurate price, we've got to do a heat load calculation, make sure the system size is right, make sure it's meeting your needs, and then give you the price that you're looking for. And I promise it'll be fair. When would you like us to come out and give you that price? Okay. So there's A, B, C there. There's a logical pathway, but at the same time, I'm tapping into their emotions as well. You see how we have both there?
Yeah.
And then I just want to know what you charge to come out. Okay. Same thing. We'll go over plan B first. This is after we listen, care, reassure, right? Tell me more. That's not good. I can help. When would you like us out? And they say, really, I just want to get an idea of what you guys charge to come out. It's a great question. Here's what we do. What we do is we send out a technician. He comes out. He takes a look at the situation. He determines exactly what needs to be fixed, and he gives you a price before he starts. Now, there is a fee of extra to come out and do that. When would you like us out? Okay. So I give him his answer, and then I ask a question of my own. When would you like us out? So he says, oh, that much? Let's say it's $1, right? For us to come out. It's $1? I don't want to spend $1. That's ridiculous. And the truth is the price doesn't really matter. Mr. Jones, is it just the fee that you're concerned about? Yeah, I don't want to pay it. So if it weren't for the fee, would you move forward with the appointment? Yeah, that's right. Okay, well, there's one thing we can do. We've got a service agreement. It's awesome. We come out in the spring, we come out in the fall, we make sure it's running at peak efficiency. The best part about it is it prevents things like this, the thing that you're dealing with right now, from happening. Now, if you wanted, I can get you on the service agreement as opposed to having to pay the dispatch fee. If I do that, is that enough for you to move forward with the appointment today? And we're rolling, right? One way or the other, they're going to move forward with us. Our goal is not just to book the call, Denny. Our goal is to book the call and wow that customer to the point where we are 911. We're 911. There's no 912. Help is on the way. We want to be the only one that goes out to that customer's home. And that's what the pattern for excellence to do once you've applied it in a proper way.
Dang. I can tell you're good at this. I was sold there myself. And I'd like you to also talk about how does that differ from what most companies are doing? So you've come in personally to a lot of different home service companies, and I'm sure you've seen it's like a nightmare. How are most companies answering the phone?
They ask for an address. They try to figure out where you're located. They use the word unfortunately a lot. They say no a lot. We can't, we don't. There's no way. And they do it naturally. Funny thing, when people say the word unfortunately, what they're saying is you're not fortunate. Essentially, we're saying you're not lucky. Don't go to Vegas anytime soon because you're not going to win. Okay. There's just a lot of not to says that people are using and they don't even realize they're using. And so our goal is to replace with what not to say with what to say in accordance with the pattern for excellence. Initially, we'll give them some scripts to start out with, but our goal is to ultimately get them to the point where they're mastering the pattern, the principles, the truths that we teach. And if we've done it right, they'll start doing it not just with the homeowner over the phone, but with their peers, with their boss, with their kids at home. You can't spank your kids anymore. You've got to sell them.
Yeah.
So the biggest, most important sell you ever make is the sell that you make with your spouse and with your kids on a regular basis. There is no success that can compensate for failure in the home. And so to be able to use these principles at home to influence your kids and your spouse is pretty important for you and for fulfillment in your life. So that's where we know. That's kind of the key indicator for us to know that we've done a good job.
Awesome. Love that. I also wanted to touch on something interesting that I heard from a podcast that I was listening to of you last night, which was that you actually, and I've seen this myself as well, that there is a good amount of correlation between business skills and sales skills and such in the Bible. And I know that you're a fairly big Christian, that Christ and God has a lot to do in your life. Can you talk about kind of what you're pulling from the Bible and what you've learned from that, and how that translates to sales and business and other things like that?
Well, I feel like I've been had. The greatest salesman on the planet is Jesus Christ.
Dang, that is so good.
If you want to be good at selling, influential selling, and this isn't about manipulation. This isn't about control. It's the opposite. And the more you study his words, and apply them in your own life, the more effective at selling you'll become. It's interesting because, Danny, this is your fault. I'm going to jump in there. I'm going to jump into this deep pool.
Yeah, let's do it.
We just had Easter, and I'm of the belief that Christ was born in April, not necessarily Christmas. Mm-hmm. Okay. So for me, Easter is not necessarily about eggs and Easter bunnies.
No.
More importantly, it's about the birth as well as the resurrection of Jesus Christ. I mean, basically, he's the only man that supposedly died and came back to life. Right. But before he did that, he went through Gethsemane. Right. And in Gethsemane, he began to take upon himself our sins and our transgressions and our sicknesses and our pains. And in that moment, the pain was so overwhelming that he asked his Father, he asked God to let the cup pass. In other words, I don't want to feel this way anymore. It hurts too much. Please stop this, right? And but then he finished the sentence with, but not my will, but thine be done. Now, what did God do in answer to that prayer? Well, he sent an angel to kind of pep talk, Jesus a little bit. And interesting that there was no other way. That was his way. That was God's way, the Father's way of saying to Jesus, his son, his beloved son, that there is no other way. And what did that teach us? Well, what it teaches us is that in our own adversities, our own difficulties, where we have to hug a cactus, so to speak, or suck a lemon, or embrace the suck, right? Whatever metaphor you want to use, that is how we learn. That is how we grow. And sometimes there is no other way. There is no other way. That's why we're here. We're here to learn from each other. We are each other's clinical material. And that's the thing that I wanted to talk about. That was the thing I was trying to think of in the beginning of this podcast. We are each other's clinical material. We learn from one another for bad, for good, for ill. Circumstances occur. And it's those obstacles. It's that opposition. It's the same thing with my son in that wrestling match the sophomore year against Delgado. Those are the moments where we learn. And there is no other way. There is no other way. And that's what I learned from the scriptures. And from Christ.
And that's the beauty of the Bible. So awesome. Absolutely love that, Brigham. And as most people know, I have it pretty clear in my bio, so it's hard to miss, but I'm a follower of Christ as well. So just so awesome to see that. I know that you've pulled a lot from the Bible, and just even like those stories that you're pulling, I'm sure most people haven't read the Bible like you have. So that was some pretty good insight there. And yeah, I guess we can end there. I think that was a good podcast already. I mean, I feel like that's a good place to end. So, where can people find you, learn more about you, and maybe sign up for your company?
Powersellingpros.com. So POWERSELLINGPROS.com. In fact, Danny, if you wanted, I can give the listeners a free way to get a happy call script.
Yeah. It's
a very good happy call script. It basically helps when calls aren't coming in. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick here. Shouldn't take me too long.
And you, happy call script?
So let's say calls aren't coming in. Instead of your CSR reading their favorite novel, or doing collections calls, which in my opinion, they should never do. Get somebody else to be dedicated to collecting. That's it. But customer service and collections are completely two different birds. Don't have your team do both. Have them focus just on customer service. So if calls aren't coming in, have them call out to your customers. And you do that with a happy call script. And I would compensate them for every appointment they book. So you get a customer on the phone, you say, hey, we were out to your home 6 months ago. How's it going? Make sure they're happy, right? As long as they're happy, you say, hey, I'm glad that you're having a great experience, that things are still working the way that they should. The reason why I ask is because we don't have you on our club membership. And I'm wondering why not, because it prevents things like the thing that you were dealing with 6 months ago from happening. If you want it, I can get you going on one right now. Okay. So you should do that when calls aren't coming in. So here's access to that happy call script. Just text. So text the word happy to the following number. And that number is 385-247-3714. And that'll, feel free to put it in the show notes if you want, Danny. 385-247-3714. Text happy to that number and you'll get a free happy call script just for listening to the podcast.
Awesome. Well, great. That's a great piece of value. So yeah, that will be put in the description of this video, whether you're watching it on YouTube or Spotify or whatever. And then where can people connect with you personally, Brigham? Are you on LinkedIn, Facebook? Where are you at? And where can people connect
I'm on
with you?
LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. Definitely reach out to me. Would love to hear from you.
Awesome. And just to be clear on your target market, are you looking to connect with home service companies or just the CSRs? Like, who are you looking to connect with?
Any business owner from the home service industry. So whether it's heating and cooling, that's our bread and butter. Plumbing, also a ton of companies that do plumbing. Electrical, roofing, pest control, molly maids, you name it. Chances are we're working with them in some form or fashion. Oh, and just when you go to powersellingpros.com, you can click on the demo link and you can get a free demo from one of the representatives here at Powerselling Pros. And we can customize a program just for you and your team to train your CSRs as well as your sales staff to book calls and wow customers. Make sure you're the only one coming out to the customer's home.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Brigham. And is there anything else you'd like to plug, promote, or mention?
Nope. That's it. Thanks so much, Dan.
Awesome, man. Yeah, of course, man. It was an honor having you on the show. And I look forward to watching it back and just staying in touch with you, man. It's really incredible what you're doing in the space. I didn't mention how long you've been in the game, but you've been in it for a while. You're crushing it. So just love what you're doing in the space, man. Just keep being you.
Thanks, Danny. I appreciate it.
For sure, man. Yeah.